Welcome back. Welcome to Fall Session B. How we doing this morning? Come on, we can do better than that. How we doing this morning? We doing all right? All right. Good deal. Well, hey, we had a great first session of chapel, and we have another really great session planned for us. Even this week, I am so excited for our speakers this week. The way that we're going to start out this session, it's going to be a great week of chapel. I wanted to mention a couple of things. The first two chapels this week, we're going to have some testimonies of hope. They're going to be really great, really impactful. And then Friday, we're going to hear from Pastor Condos and Fuquay, so make sure you're here on Friday. Yep, we're excited about that. Next week is our 62nd annual missions conference. We're really looking forward to that. We have around 55 guests that will be here on campus to connect, to interact. We have a bunch of extra events that are planned for next week as well. It's just a really big week to focus in on what God is doing around the world to build his kingdom. And I want you to hear me say, doesn't matter your major, your plans, we all have a role to play in building God's kingdom. So we try to present this conference in that way, that no matter what your plans are for the future, that you have a role to play in building God's kingdom and seeing what he's doing both here and around the world. Specifically, our biggest event of the week is next week, Tuesday, called Taste of the World in the evening. We'll have food and games and activities, opportunities to connect with mission guests. You also can earn chapel credit by showing up to Taste of the World, just saying. So, Taste of the World, we got seminars next week. There's an open mic night. There's several other events. So, we're looking for those things next week. We're really looking forward to our missions conference starting next week. All right, I wanted to review a couple of things. With this being the start of a new session, I just want to reiterate a couple of things and make sure we're all on the same page. Again, so you need to earn 18 chapel credits per session, okay, 18 per session. If you've looked at the schedule and counted them up, you might be thinking, okay, it's a little tighter this session than it was last session. So to step towards you to make sure that this session works out, we're offering some extra opportunities. So there's going to be 2 extra opportunities next week during missions conference. So be on the lookout for those opportunities next week. I'll say more about that next week, Tuesday in chapel. You'll have 2 extra opportunities to earn credit next week during missions conference. I also wanted to point out 2 specific chapels this session. The first one is on November 4th, which just so happens to be my birthday. And our new president just happened to plan his presidential inauguration on my birthday. Wow, that's just... Okay, so the November 4th chapel is going to be an extended chapel hour. Okay, if you didn't hear me now. That is an extended chapel hour, so that will go 10:30 to noon that morning. It's going to be a really big celebration to have you all here. And since it's an extended chapel hour, you will earn 2 chapel credits for going to the presidential inauguration. Wow. Okay. The other one, I'll say more about this in a few weeks, is Midnight Chapel. Midnight Chapel will happen this session. You will also earn 2 credits for showing up to Midnight Chapel this session as well. Wow. Aren't I generous? That's just so great. Okay. Couple of quick expectation things for our time here in chapel. I want to move quickly through this. Just a reminder, waivers have to be filled out every session. If you had a waiver for last session, you need to refill out the form on the portal this session. And be sure you wait for an approval email before you start banking on the waiver requirements that are sent to you. So make sure you wait for the approval email. Again, you need to scan in and out. I believe the app has been working much better for us this school year, this session. And one clarification, I will have a chapel coordinator up in the upper concourse by the TV until 10:40 every morning of chapel. They will be up there till 10:40. If you have any issues with the app or scanning in, you need to see the chapel coordinator before you find your seat. You need to find them so they can give you a code or help you get scanned in. If you come up to them at the end and tell them it didn't work, you're going to be out of luck, okay? So another change, make sure you find a chapel coordinator at the end if you're having trouble with your attendance, and they will email chapel on your behalf, making sure that you get credit for being here. But again, you need to see them before chapel begins if you're having trouble with your app. We're going to try to bring some consistency to helping students when they're having problems with the app. All right. The only other thing I want to remind us of is we're inviting you to sit on this side of the curtain. I know that's an epiphany for all of us, right? But I just want to make sure you all hear that expectation, and don't be surprised if you find me walking around in a Batman mask asking you to find a seat on this side of the curtain, okay? All right, with that, let's get back to our regular festivities here in chapel. Come on up, band. We're going to sing to the Lord, sing some worship together. Let's stand and worship the Lord together.
Hey everybody, happy Fall Bee. Welcome to the new session, a fresh sesh, if you will. Yeah, we're excited to worship together today and to get that started this session, and we'd love for you to join us as we sing.
Alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace, when fears are stilled, when striving cease. My comforter, my all in all, here in the love of Christ I stand. Christ alone, who took on flesh, for us to die in hell, this calls me home. Here in the power of Christ I'll stand. Amen.
All right, if you all could stay standing this morning, we're going to continue in worship here in just a minute. This morning, we're going to hear a testimony of hope. I'm not going to say too much of an introduction because they're going to share our story with us. His name is George. He's from Virginia, so I'm going to have you help me welcome George to the stage. Come on up, George.
Thank you, Brent. Well, hey, good morning, everybody. How is everyone? Good. I am so glad to be here. I'm excited to join you in this morning's chapel session, and I'm just looking forward to the time to share some of my story with you and hopefully encourage you and challenge you to look at your own challenges in a different way, because I know we all go through so many different things in life, and sometimes life can seem messy and dark and crazy, and I'm just honored to be able to share really how God brought me from a place of just complete despair, brokenness, and death to where I am this morning with you guys tonight. This morning tonight. Did I just say that? I did. All right. But hey, I want to go ahead and kick this off this morning and just worship with you all together. And yes, absolutely. You can stay standing if you'd like. You can, if you feel led to sit down, you can do that too. You can lay down if you want. I don't know what you do here in Winona Lake, but you're more than welcome to lay down if you want. I don't know. But one of my favorite songs to worship to is just How He Loves. For me, it's a very simple reminder in a very complicated, busy world. I know if you're anything like me, sometimes I can tend to overcomplicate the gospel. I can tend to overcomplicate God's love even, thinking, if I was better in this area, God would love me more, or if I just stopped messing up here, then God would bless me more, or, if I mess up, He's going to love me less. We just can tend to overcomplicate it, but this song is a reminder for me, and I hope for you too, that He just loves us, and that's just that. So let's worship together this morning. Love's like a hurricane, I am a tree bending beneath the weight of His wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful You are and how great Your affections are for me. And oh, how He loves us so. Oh, how He loves us. How He loves us so. He is jealous. He is jealous for me. He loves like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of His wind and mercy. Oh, and all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful You are and how great Your affection I don't have time to maintain these regrets when I think about the way that He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Oh, how He loves. Yeah, He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Oh, how He loves. Oh, how He loves. Amen. Y'all can be seated. Look at. Thank you. Well, again, it is really such an honor and a privilege to be with you guys this morning. My name's George Dennehy. I am from Richmond, Virginia. I live there with my family, my wife Amanda, and our two kids. And man, I've been here in Winona Lake since Thursday, and it has been such a blessing to be in this very cute little town. I love it here, and I'm leaving to go home today, and a part of me is kind of like, not yet. But man, I am thrilled to be able to share my story with you this morning, and a couple of things I want you to just keep in mind during this chapel, during this service. First, I want you to keep in mind and remember that God created you for a plan and for a purpose. He created you on purpose exactly the way you are for a purpose, and He has things for you to do. And no one is exempt from this because He is an intelligent and perfect God. And I also want you to remember that we go through so many things in life, and oftentimes it's easy to feel like God is absent. It's easy to feel like we can't get through it, or we're not strong enough, or we're not capable enough, but He is. And that's all that really matters. And last thing I want us to remember this morning is we are just called to be obedient. That's it. We're just called to be obedient. Before I get into just the meat, I guess, of the message, I want to address something with you all this morning. I want to address the big armless elephant in the room. Because let me explain, the fact that I don't have arms, that is the first thing that people notice about me. All the time. Ever since I was a little kid, I got very used to the stares. The glances, the whispers, the pointing, even the questions. And you know what? I think a part of this is just our human nature. We notice what's different from us. We can't help but notice what's different from us. I do that. But all my life, kids would come up to me, even adults would come up to me, and they'd say, what happened? What happened to you? Where are your arms? Were you in an accident? Man, I had one guy come up to me one time, and he looked at me and he said, shark attack? And I looked at him, I'm like, what do you mean, two sharks get me at the same time? Like, and I want to ask you something real quick. Do you ever have mornings where you're just super, I don't want to say mad, grumpy, I guess? You're just not feeling it. It's like early in the morning and you're just not feeling it. Do you ever have mornings like that? One time, I was having a morning like that. I had to get on a flight early in the morning because I was speaking at an event in the evening, and I sat next to this lady, and she must have been having a morning like this too, but she looked at me, and she just blurted out, "What'd you do?" She said, "What'd you do?" And I was just sitting down, and I just said, "That was a plane crash." But I want to share one time, really in particular, that I will never forget. One thing that I really love to do, a hobby of mine, is I love to swim. I really do. I love it. I only have 2 limbs, I know, but I love it. I'm not very good at swimming, although I am very good at doing a pencil dive. Very good at that. But I live about 2 hours from Virginia Beach, so every summer I like to go to the beach a couple times, and I'm swimming in the ocean. And years ago, back when I was just an angry teen, I was at the ocean and swimming around, and I got up out of the ocean, I came up to the beach, and I passed a family, like a little girl who was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and her parents. And this girl this kid was adorable. She kind of looked like that character from Monsters, Inc. What was her name? Oh, you guys scared me. She looked like this little kid from Monsters, Inc. And kids have absolutely no filter, right? We know this. You know what I'm saying? And she gave me this very confused looking just look. She looked really confused. And I don't know if she was thinking this is some kind of like dolphin creature or sea anomaly or what. But she looked at me and she just said, "What's wrong with you?" You know, and kids have no filter. They say things. And "What's wrong with you?" And I looked at her and I just said, "When I was your age, I didn't eat my vegetables." Yeah, I'm not the nicest guy. And I kind of half expected her dad to just punch me. And, I mean, what was I going to do, block it? But he didn't. She looked over at her dad. She looked over at her dad, and her dad just stood there, and all he did was this. That's it. I love having fun with just who I am. I love having fun with not having arms, and man, I could go on with stories and stories after story, especially driving around in a car, going through drive-thrus, getting pulled over. It's fun. It's fun. But let me go ahead and take you just back to the beginning of my life and really walk you through everything God has done in my life, even when things seemed absolutely hopeless. So I was born on January 19th, 1994. I was born without arms, and I was actually born in Romania. I was born in a very small village that didn't even have a name. It was a poor place, a poor village. My family was absolutely in poverty, and they couldn't take care of me. So straight from birth, they put me in an orphanage. I was neglected and abandoned, and I was malnourished. I was not cared for. I was not loved. I was not held in the orphanage because the nurses, the workers, they literally thought that I had evil spirits living inside me because I didn't have arms. They thought that I was cursed by God, and if they were to hold me, then I would curse them. So I was really just left for dead in this orphanage. There was a doctor who came into the orphanage, and he would look at all the children and give like medical reviews or evaluations, I guess. And he came over to my crib, and he saw the condition that I was in. And he looked down, and he told the nurses, "There's no hope for him. This is pointless. He's just going to die soon anyways." And what he did was he took a piece of paper and he wrote a month and a year, and then he left one blank and he taped it to my crib. And he said, "You just fill in the day of when he dies." And then he wrote death date on that piece of paper. And that was that. And then he left. So yeah, not a very good start to my life. But man, the good news is God didn't leave me there to die. You see, it looked to be, it's a hopeless situation. I was destined for death, but then God was even in that place orchestrating my entire story. In the middle of that, he was beginning to work on the hearts and minds of a couple here in the States who had 3 kids of their own, and he moved them to this idea of adoption. They had some very close friends of theirs that had just gone through the adoption process, and they asked them about it and whatnot, and the friend said, "Here, just take this." And it was a newsletter, an adoption newsletter, where you can kind of look at kids and their stories. And they were looking through it, and one picture caught their eye in particular. It was a black and white picture of a baby boy with no arms. And the description read, "Baby boy, born without arms, desperately needs a loving family." And then it went on to say, "This boy will soon die, ... And when my parents saw that, when they read that, they knew immediately that they were being called to fill in those dots, to bring me home. And that's exactly what they did. They went through all the paperwork. They went to Romania. They picked me up for the first time. I was 1.5, and I weighed 9 pounds. I was sick. I was pale. I couldn't hold my head up. I was dying. But man, my parents, they adopted me. They brought me into this family. They even gave me a new name, a new trajectory of my life from death to life. Unconditional love saved me. Adoption saved me. I have this new future because they saw me in my orphan state, and they brought me home and gave me life. Let me ask you something here this morning. Does this sound familiar to any of you? Does this sound familiar? Sounds a little bit like the gospel, doesn't it? Man, the gospel is an adoption story. It's all through the Bible. We have been adopted as sons and daughters into the family of God. And I just want to throw that out there. If you are in here and you're a believer, you were adopted. You were once an orphan, but not anymore. God saw you in your orphan state. He saw you with that death certificate on your crib that the enemy placed on there. That the enemy came by and said, he's just going to die. There's no hope for him. There's no hope for her. Worthless, meaningless. But God came by and said, no, that's my child. I'm adopting them. They're mine. That's what my parents did for me. It didn't take long for me to flourish and to blossom. So my parents, they had 3 kids of their own at the time. They adopted me. And then they went on to adopt 9 more children from 5 other countries. So we are just one big, sometimes happy family. My parents, they have their 3 homemade cookies and their 10 store-bought cookies. And I have to say, I was really blessed. Honestly, I was very blessed and fortunate to grow up in the family that I grew up in. And to have the parents that I have, because my parents were pretty strict. Anybody have strict parents sometimes? My parents are pretty strict. They didn't help me with a whole lot of stuff, basically. As a kid, my first initial thought, my natural thought was, I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't button my shirt. I can't wash my hair. I can't do this. And I really thought I just needed help with everything. And my parents, they weren't experts at all on special needs adoptions or raising a child with no arms. They're not experts, but they just knew that God made him, God will sustain him. And he's going to figure it out. So my parents, they pushed me to figure life out. Not to focus on what I don't have, but to use what I do have, which are my legs and my feet. And I have to say that being born like this, it is all I've ever known. So yeah, I love coming to places and talking about overcoming challenges and even sharing, like, I do this, I do that, I drive, I live independently, I have a family, all this stuff. But a lot of the things I learned how to do just came naturally. And absolutely, there are some things that are harder than others, for sure. Like getting a full gallon of milk out of the fridge. That's a little tough, but I figure it out. Getting something from the grocery store that's on the top shelf, that's kind of tough, but I figure it out. I just got to jump and hit it with my head. It looks like it's a funny little scene, I think. I just figure it out. So what I say and what I try to tell people is that I do everything that everybody else does. I do. I just do it different. I just do things differently. But we all know that different doesn't mean less. Different doesn't mean less. And I'm very thankful for my parents who really prepared me physically to be independent, to be an overcomer, to overcome challenges, to tackle challenges head on. We all have challenges in our lives. And yeah, some are physical. We have to overcome. We have to figure it out. We have to try. We have to fail. We have to try again. We have to fail again. We have to try a different way. But we can overcome. And my parents did just a great job at preparing me for that. But what my parents really couldn't prepare me for was just the hardships of life. The emotions that would eventually come as I got older and as I grew, as I went from being just a small child into a teenager. Middle school and high school were some of the hardest years of my life. It was these years where I realized something pretty obvious, but I didn't think about it until then, that I am different than everybody else. And not only that, but kids treat me different because I am. Kids are mean to me because I don't have arms. Kids are calling me names. I grew up in a very small town up in Connecticut, in a small community. I was homeschooled for a couple years. I took music lessons from a very young age. I began playing the cello at age 7. And, it was a nice, small, little town, but then we moved to Virginia, and I got thrown into a public middle school for the first time. And that was a culture shock. I wasn't prepared for this. And kids were just mean. Kids were cruel. I was alone. And I started to wonder, and I started to think about just life, and I had these questions, and questions we all have, like, why am I here? What's the meaning of all this? What's the purpose in all this? And I don't know if you've ever found yourself in a season or in a situation, or you're going through just a really tough time, and you can't help but have this question in your head, the question of, God, how could you do this to me? God, how could you do this to me? You might even have thought that question and maybe feel like you're sinning for even asking the question, like even doubting God. But I just want you to know that you're not the only one to ever think that or to ever ask that question. This question plagued my mind for years. Middle school, high school. It was a dark, dark season in my life. I felt worthless. I felt meaningless. I felt like I didn't matter. Why me? Why me? I grew up in church, a little bit of my church background. I grew up in a small little community, a small church, and I grew up in Sunday school and hearing John 3:16 and Jeremiah 29:11, Philippians 4:13. I grew up hearing all this stuff and even singing the songs, right? Like, Jesus loves the little children. Yeah, exactly, little children. I grew up hearing these songs, but here I am, this 12-year-old, and I'm thinking, Jesus loves all the little children? Really? Then why did he make me without arms? What's loving about that? How does a loving God do that? It didn't make sense to me. And maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've been through trauma in your life and you can't help but look back and just say, how does a loving God do that? Or how does a loving God allow this to happen? Or somebody who's going through a really hard time. You've experienced loss. You've experienced sickness. You've experienced just hard things. And here's the thing about challenges. I just want to throw this out there. Sometimes we get up and we speak and we talk about like big things like sickness, death in the family, horrible accidents. Like we talk about these things like challenges, but man, challenges, they do come in all shapes and sizes. And they are all valid. They are all valid. One of my biggest gripes about what I do and what I get to do, I love getting to do what I do. But a lot of the times, people come up to me and they say, wow, I'm so glad I got to hear you speak and see that you don't have arms. I'm done complaining. I'm done feeling like my challenges are big because yours are way worse. People say that. And I'm like, I get it. I get the sentiment. I'm glad that it's encouraging. But man, your challenges are absolutely valid. They might not seem big. Even objectively, they might not seem big, but they are. You might have a horrible morning where it's just one thing after another. That's a big deal to you in the moment. It is. You might go through a breakup even, and you think like, okay, a breakup in college, or you break up in high school, and you might not look like a big deal, but it's a big deal. It's a form of loss. Everything we go through affects us. The small things and the big things. And I was here in high school, and I found myself in this just very dark state of mind where the enemy had such a hold on my heart. I think something that the enemy does that can be really effective if we allow it is he isolates us. He makes us feel alone. He makes us feel unwanted, uncared for, like we don't fit in anywhere. Isolation. And if you're anything like me, when I'm going through a hard time, it is very easy for me to isolate. That's what I do. That's what I do. I mean, when I was in high school and middle school going through this stuff, I isolated. I'd go home and my parents would ask how school was, and I'd say it was good. And then I'd go home, or I'd go upstairs in my room and I'd cry for the rest of the night. Isolate. He wants to isolate you. And then I really believe he wants us to feel and believe that we can't be used by God. I really think he wants us to think that we can't be used by God and that we're just roaming around aimlessly by accident, by mistake, and that we don't matter to God, and that there's no way we could be a part of God's great mission and God's great plan. And he really made me believe that. I was angry. I was depressed. I was writing suicide notes at age 16. I thought my life didn't matter. I thought my life was over. And that's kind of what happens, when we're going through hard times, when we're going through dark seasons, we really only see what we're going through because we're human. We're human. We only see what's right in front of us, what's happening today. Even when we go through like momentary stresses, you know what I mean? Like you're running late or you missed your alarm, you're just end of the world, because we just see what's right in front of us. I lost sight of everything. I had so much hate and anger in my heart. And I even began talking to God. I didn't think I was praying because I hated him, but I began talking to him and I started to ask him, all right, Lord, all right, if you are so real and if you are so good and you are so wonderful, like everybody says and I'm hearing at church that I hate going to, if you are all these things, then make me wake up tomorrow with arms. Give me arms. What a miracle that would be, right, God? If I woke up and had arms, and man, that would be such a miracle. Then I would trust you, then I would know you're real, and I would just go tell everybody. I wouldn't be able to help myself. I would just go tell everybody, like, I had arms, or I didn't have arms before, now I do. God, how amazing is he? Wow. I was beckoning and bargaining with God. I don't know if you've ever done that, maybe not to that degree, because I'm looking around the room, and I'm like, I think everybody in here has got some arms, I think. But I was beckoning and bargaining with God and saying, God, if you do this for me, then I'll trust you. Then I'll be happy. Then I'll be set. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not faith. That is not faith. That is prove it, and then I'm in. That's prove it, and then I'll join you. Then I'll be set. Maybe you've kind of asked that question or even kind of subconsciously said, God, if you could just help me get through this, if you could just help me here, if you could just do this for me, then I'll be set. Then I'll be good. Then I'll be happy. God, this season's really, really hard. If you could just fix it for me, then everything will be fine. Everything will be good. God, I know I messed up in this area, but if you can just get me out of this just this once, I won't do it again. I found myself bargaining, and I wanted this miracle so bad. I wanted arms so bad. But God never gave me arms. He never did. I never woke up one morning and had arms. Unless I did, and I went to the beach and got eaten by sharks. I don't know. But just kidding. I never woke up and just magically had arms. That miracle didn't happen. So yeah, I got more and more and more discouraged. But I want to tell you confidently that a miracle did happen in my life, and even a greater miracle than not having arms. God didn't fix my body per se, he fixed my heart. He changed my heart, worked on my heart, and fixed my mind, and changed my mind because, yeah, a lot of it's a heart thing. Jesus comes and changes our heart, this and that, but it's also a mind thing. Seriously, your thoughts, your words, your perspective matters. I was at this place in my life where I was at the end of my rope, and I found myself at a crossroads. And I was sitting in youth group one Wednesday night, and I didn't want to be there. I had to be there because I was a kid, and my parents made me go to youth group to get me out of the house. And I didn't want to be there, but the youth pastor was talking about John chapter 9. Just the first couple of verses, and I'll kind of paraphrase through them, but John chapter 9 is basically Jesus and his disciples walking on the road, and they see a blind man, a disabled guy, on the side of the road. And the disciples, they see him, and what do? They ask, whoa, what happened to him? Jesus, why was this man born blind? Was it his sin or was it his parents' sin? Like, what happened to this guy? And that was so crazy to hear at that point in time. And you guys, I had heard this story plenty of times before this. But sometimes the word just jumps out at you in just a totally different way. His mercies are new every morning. But the disciples are like, Jesus, what happened to this blind man? Why is he blind? Again, something I was very used to at this point. Where are your arms? What happened to you? And the Bible doesn't specifically say this, but I kind of picture Jesus shaking his head a little bit. I don't know. I just kind of picture it. I'll ask him when I get there. But, I mean, his disciples just get on it. Like, what happened to this blind man? And then Jesus, very calmly, just says, it was nobody's sin or no accident or nothing. This man was born blind so that the works of God could be seen through him. Like, yeah, he's blind. He may not be able to see, but I can still use him. I can still work through him. Even through his story, even from his story, when he goes on to heal him, and he goes tells people, like, even from his story, I can use him. And I was sitting there, and it just something started to change. Where the first thought kind of happened. The first question: if God can use this blind man, then maybe God can use me too. Maybe God can use you too. My questions began to change where I started asking instead, God, how could you do this to me? I started to ask God, how can you use me through this? How can you teach me through this? How can you help me grow through this? God, instead of asking, why me? In a pitiful way, really genuinely asking, God, why me? Why did you choose me for this life? Why did you choose me to go through this? What do you have for me? A genuine question, asking God, what is your purpose here? What is your plan here? And he will reveal that to us. That's what he does. He wants us to get to that place of, God, I surrender. Just show me your will. Show me your purpose, and I will obey. I want to start closing with this. The biggest thing I want you to understand about me, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to talk about not having arms. Love it. But you need to understand that me not having arms is not my disability. That is not my disability. And I want you to know, too, that I am not the only disabled one in here. I'm not the only person who's disabled in this room. Right? I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, if we look in the mirror, we all have stuff. We all struggle with things. I mean, what's a disability? A disability is, I guess, something that could potentially hinder you from reaching your God-given potential. Don't we all have that? What would that be called? Sin. We all live in a sinful and broken world. We are all affected by sin. I'm not disabled because I don't have arms. I'm disabled because I get anxious, because I get angry, I get jealous, I get hurt, I get upset, I get nervous. I doubt. I question. I sometimes get self-conscious. I'm disabled because of things on the inside, and we all deal with things on the inside. But I want you to remember, I want you to understand that when we get in this mindset of, I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not capable enough, I have this going on, I have this going on, I struggle with anxiety, I struggle with depression, I'm just not enough. When we get in that mindset, we're losing sight of what this is all about. Because life is not about us. It's not about you. It's not about what you can do or can't do or what you think you can do or can't do. It's about what Jesus has already done, and he has already overcome all of it. It's awesome. It's simple, but we get it complicated because we go through life. We live on the other side of the resurrection. We can rest and remember and be encouraged that God is in control, that he does have a plan and a purpose for your life, for my life. That in any time we go through things, when we go through hard times, it's not the end. It's not the end-all, be-all. We only see what's right in front of us, yes, but God is the ultimate author and painter of the entire picture. And he's perfect. And that should give us hope. Hope for today, hope for tomorrow, hope for the future. The future can be scary, but man, God is in control of the future. And we should remember that always. So I want to go ahead and close this morning's service with a song that I wrote called Not Abandoned. And I hope this song kind of reaches you and speaks to you. every day, every hour, wondering if you'll make it out. You've been here for as long as you can remember, trapped inside this hollow shell. You're not abandoned. You're not alone. There is a family that wants to make you their own. You're gonna find out. On this broken road, there is a pathway that's gonna lead you home, lead you home. You were left in a wasteland with a voice yet to be heard. You're still waiting and always fighting for a chance just to be loved. Yeah, you're not abandoned. You're not alone. There is a family that wants to make you their own. You're gonna find out. On this broken road, there is a pathway that's gonna lead you home. You're not abandoned. You're not alone. There is a Savior. He wants to make you his own. You're gonna find out. On this broken road, there is a pathway that's gonna lead you home. You're not abandoned. You're not abandoned. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for being here. I don't think you have to, maybe. But thank you for being here. I really had a wonderful time this morning with you all. I just want to thank Grace College for inviting me and just letting me be a part of such a special morning. You guys are dismissed. Have a great day.